Hello, my name is Edwin Epperson. I'm with The Sophisticated Investor, and we are helping you build, protect, and preserve your family's generational wealth. Today, we're going to be covering investing in private notes. This is something I'm very passionate about. I believe that this should be a foundational investment vehicle in everyone's portfolio. So we're going to cover the 5W's and the how of private note investing. So first off, just a little bit about myself. Again, I served in the United States Army. I earned my Green Beret. And during that time, I served for 13 and a half years. And during those 13 and a half years, I deployed over 7 different times to places such as Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, and South America. During my time in, we had lots of training. And that training included leadership, being decisive, and the ability and the importance of communication. Those 3 key components of training led me to really adopt that extreme ownership mentality. This is also a book written by a fellow Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink, called Extreme Ownership. If you are in a leadership position and this is something that you are passionate about, I would highly recommend that you pick up that book and read it. It's one of my favorites. So where am I at today? Well, in 2014, I actually established my private lending business. I actually made my very first loan on the side of a mountain in Afghanistan. I surrounded myself with mentors and became a part of many different mastermind groups, and now I do that for others. During those years, I made over 100 loans, and I've deployed over $15 million of investment capital, as well as I have gone through foreclosures, and I have seen how others have been scammed. And these are key ingredients that I want to talk about to let you know that private lending can be and should be a key component in your investment portfolio and how to go about doing that wisely. So first, let's talk about some facts of generational wealth, because this is really important, right? We all understand that you become who you follow, or another way to say it is, you will become your 5 closest friends. Whatever that the saying is, we understand intuitively that who you surround yourself with will guide and direct the way that you think and approach life. And the wealthy are very intentional with who they surround themselves with. Well, who are the wealthy? Where, what, and how do they invest? Like, what are those key components? So first off, we all understand, and we've heard this metric before, that 90% of the world's millionaires invest in real estate. Now, that does not mean that 90% of the world's millionaires are real estate investors. Matter of fact, a lot of them are actually they are actually generated their wealth through some other form, maybe not always real estate. However, 90% of the world's millionaires do invest in real estate. They also understand this key component, that risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. This is actually a quote from Warren Buffett, who is actually a very avid investor in the stock market. I'm sure you have heard of him. And this saying cannot be said more true than any other investment method than private mortgage lending, because it is so hard to find good, solid information of how to go about actually becoming a private lender. One of the other things that sophisticated investors that utilize private lending, they really understand the difference between an asset and a liability. Case in point, many people assume that their personal property, the place where they live, is an asset, where if you have ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or any of Robert Kiyosaki's books, you understand that he's very intentional about delineating what is the difference between an asset and a liability. A very simplistic approach, but there's truth in simplicity. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. So sophisticated investors really understand the difference between an asset versus a liability. Another thing that they're really into or really understand is the control versus ownership perspective. And this is really where private lending brings out the sophisticated investors more than any other investment method. Why is that? Because when you become a private lender, you are opting to control assets, not necessarily own assets. And you are making those investment decisions so that you stay in the position of control, not ownership. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Well, let's jump right in. Who can invest in private mortgages? Well, we always assume that doctors and attorneys, business professionals are the only people that can invest into private mortgages. But I want to dispel this myth because, quite frankly, anybody can invest in private mortgages. And this includes you. One of the biggest myths that are out there is that age is a component. Only those that are wealthy, and they're wealthy because they're older, they've had this entire lifetime to build up wealth. Therefore, only the older generation can invest in private mortgages. Only they can be private lenders. And I have to tell you that I've helped many people, both young and old and everyone in between, to understand and realize that they too can become private lenders, that they can invest in private mortgages and private deeds of trust and take that position of control versus ownership. Another aspect or a myth is that they have to do everything. Well, leverage does not only apply to money. Leverage can apply to many different aspects, and specifically these three key ingredients. If you're a busy professional and you have a career, you have a job that you're working towards building a fulfilling life for you and your family, then you need to find somebody else whose time is dedicated to performing this investment strategy and leverage their time. If you do not have the knowledge to make the safer loans, to underwrite, to mitigate, and then shift risk, then you simply need to find someone who does and leverage their knowledge. And if you are concerned that you will make a mistake or that the risk seems too great to overcome, then you simply need to find someone who has the experience and they are willing to teach you that and show you how to navigate these uncharted waters and leverage their experience. This is the beauty of leverage. It does not just apply to money, which is what most people perceive it as, but it also applies to time, knowledge, and experience, which in the long run equates to much greater returns on the money that you have than if you did not have these three components. And if you have unanswered questions and you're unsure about private mortgage investing, then this is where my company specializes in providing the leverage for each one of these issues that I just mentioned. Another component is the wealthy. People probably assume that the misconception is that this investment vehicle is only for the wealthy and the high net worth individual. This could not be further from the truth. Maybe in the traditional way of investing into mortgage pools or registered investment trusts or funds where only accredited investors could afford the opportunity to invest in private mortgages, that might be the case. But with meticulous attention to detail in my own investments and solid, grounded solutions provided by my team, my company has been providing private mortgage investment opportunities to my private clients since 2014. And we can teach you how to do the same as well. Well, what is private mortgage investing? Well, it's first off thinking like the bank. Just like the banks mitigate and shift unmitigated risk onto you when you buy a home, you can do the same when you decide to loan your money out secured to real property. Just like the banks, you can analyze investment opportunities. This investment method is called private mortgage investing because just like the banks who analyze and secure their capital with the mortgage or a deed of trust, you can do the same as well when you lend your money secured to real property. And third, investing like the bank. And just like banks make you pay monthly for their borrowed capital, such as car loans or mortgages, credit cards, lines of credit, etc., you can receive monthly payments on your capital as well for a certain period of time until the collateralized property is either sold or refinanced. Well, when should someone invest in private mortgages? This is a question that many people have asked over the years. Should I invest only in a up market, in a down market? When should I invest in private mortgages? And it's unique because, remember, you get to mitigate and then shift any risk onto the borrower. And because you are acting as the bank, you can make the rules. If the market starts to shift, you can require more skin in the game, meaning more of the borrower's capital as a down payment, thus keeping your loan to value low. Your security is the asset, and you have plenty of equity cushion. You will be afforded more protection when the market goes wrong. Here's another aspect. People think that, well, can I invest? I've just graduated, or maybe I'm already into retirement. Whether you have just graduated or you're getting your first job or on the cusp of selling off into the sunset, diversifying your investment portfolio to include private mortgages and deeds of trust will allow you to begin building long-term passive income and creating generational wealth. Another question is, well, what if I'm focused on either growth or cash flow? And whether you're looking for growth opportunities or simply maintain your income, private mortgage investing offers plenty of diverse and multifaceted opportunities to do either or do both at the same time. Another question that we have is where? Where can I invest in private mortgages? This is really important because there are key components of this, and I want to cover some of these real briefly. Are you going to be doing owner-occupied or non-owner occupied? You can decide to lend to owner-occupied or non-owner occupied, and just be aware that there are certain laws that apply depending on who you're lending to. So you need to know the laws of your state and the property, the state where your property is located at. Just be aware that there are two primary borrowers, and that can drastically change the type of note that you're originating or you're investing in. Another component is single-family residences compared to commercial. So single-family residences have many different options, and they're faster to turn compared to mortgage, or compared to commercial, excuse me. So anything that involves real property can be collateralized. As long as you have a lien and it's publicly recorded, that is a collateralized debt, and that debt can be collateralized or secured to any one of these type of assets. The key question to you then is, what type of asset do you want to collateralize? Another question that many people have when they're considering investing in private mortgages, do you want to invest in mortgages secured to affordable homes or mortgages secured to luxurious homes? You can decide whether to lend on affordable housing or high-end housing. The exit strategy plays a big role here, so be sure to understand what type of properties that you're going to be investing in can also have effect on how long your loan is going to be. Another question that we get is, should I invest in loans in my backyard or should I invest in loans across the nation? And really, you get to decide. You can decide whether you want to loan to borrowers only in your state or anywhere in the world. Just remember, you've got to know the laws of the state that you're investing in when it comes to private mortgages and deeds of trust. Here's another component of becoming the bank. You can invest in either the debt or the equity. I teach investors that investing in debt, becoming the lender, is really the safest and most risk mitigation play that you can make. However, there are ways that you can invest in the equity as well by becoming a private lender. Here's the underlying common factor amongst all of this. It's secured to real property. Well, why should you invest in private mortgages? Well, here's probably the first and easiest way, is because it's secured. No matter what, you have an asset that your money is secured to. It is secured to that property through the note. This spells out your terms. The note is the terms. Buy a mortgage or a deed of trust, also called a security instrument. The mortgage is a publicly recorded document that lets anyone know who the borrower is and what they owe. These documents are legally binding and thereby enforceable in the court of law, meaning not even a bankruptcy can wipe them out. As long as you have the proper team in place and they are conducting business within the law of the state, the county, and the city that you're investing in, you have assurances that no other investment vehicle has. Only one that has assurances as close to capital secured by private mortgage or deed of trust investing to real property would be government bonds, checking and savings account insured by the FDIC. And what are they making in returns right now? Another aspect of why you should invest in private mortgages is the passive income component. You can structure your passive lending to pay you annually, quarterly, monthly, weekly, doesn't matter. You make the rules. There are not many other investment opportunities that provide you a steady source of income that can be so dependable as private mortgage investing. You literally don't have to work for any of this money. The investment vehicle is a true example of making your dollars work for you. Here's another, it's the risk component. Where in many other types of investment methods, you leave the control of the risk in someone else's hands, such as with a stockbroker. With the private mortgage investing, you have the ability to literally pick your team. And that's all the professionals that help you do private lending. You get to operate your investments through tight and strict guidelines. And while making the decision may seem overwhelming for some people, it's not that difficult. Either the proposed mortgage meets your guidelines and you invest, or it does not and you do not invest. How do you know? You simply rely on your team that you have in place. And then speaking of the team, where is it that the private mortgage really shines? Well, remember that leverage? You get to leverage licensed professionals throughout every step of the way. You're like the conductor in an orchestra, and these professionals, they are the artist. You simply let them know what you want, and then they perform. You are truly able to leverage other people's knowledge, experience, and time to help you manage your investing risk. For example, my very first loan that I did was actually while I was in Afghanistan in 2014, and I loaned to a real estate investor in Pensacola. And this was all because of the team that I had in place. And all of this talk of team may make you wonder, who's really paying for all of them? Well, this is powerful because it's the only investment method where someone else pays for the fees that you incur to make your investment. That's right. Once you have your team in place, they are all paid for by the borrower. Just like the banks make you pay for everything when you buy a house, you now are becoming like the bank. Well, talking about risk and mitigation, here are some of the most common risk as well as the most common mitigation techniques. Well, what happens if the market crashes? Like we saw in 2008, like many people are predicting is going to happen in 2021. And that has happened many times throughout our centuries of being a nation and having private mortgages and loans. You get to mitigate that by ensuring low loan to values and shorter terms, meaning make short loans, 12 months or less. What happens if the borrower stops paying? Well, that's why you hire an attorney that the borrower pays for to draft up your loan documents to keep you safe. What about if the asset is destroyed, meaning the property through a fire or wind damage or a tornado or earthquake or a hurricane or you name the natural disaster, what happens if it's destroyed? Well, that's why as the mortgagee, because you're making the loan, you can be an additional loss payee on the insurance policy. And if anything happens to that property and the borrower files a claim, you have control of that claim disbursement before the borrower. What happens if the borrower tries to scam you? That's where you get background checks. That's why you have your team in place. And more importantly, why you require that borrowers bring money to the table. There is a huge red flag when a borrower tries to get a 100% financed loan and they are not willing to put any of their money at risk. There's nothing that keeps them from walking away. Well, what happens about rehab funding is not enough. If you're making a loan and it's for the property, that's why you have escrow and you have draw inspections. If the project is going to be for an X amount for a period of time, then you hold the borrower to that. And there are licensed third-party inspectors that can actually help you ensure that the money that you're dispersing is money that is actually already a part of the property. It's attached and it's not going to something else. Well, what happens if the borrower is sued? This is a risk. What happens when the borrower is sued? That's why you ensure that the borrower has property insurance as well. If they're running a business, they should have company insurance as well if there's an issue with the title of the property. Well, again, that's why you as a lender get lender's title insurance. This is different than if the borrower gets title insurance. As a lender, you have the ability to get lender's title insurance, which protects your capital more so than even the borrower. How do you begin investing in private mortgages? Maybe through this presentation, you've decided that you want to become invested in private mortgages. This is something you want to pursue. Well, first off, you need to glean knowledge. You need to increase your knowledge in the subject. You can do that by many different ways: books, seminars, and courses. You can even go back to college, other mentors, and even more importantly, other private lenders. What about your team? What's the team that you need to have in place? Well, these are some very high-level aspects of private lending that you will want to have in place. And remember, you don't have to pay for any of these. Your borrower pays for every single one of these. Here's a very common question: is capital. Where do you access capital? Where these are some of the places where my private capital providers have accessed capital in the past, and you can as well. There's another aspect that we teach, that I teach, is OPM, or other people's money. This is a very sophisticated technique, and this will allow you to make more loans utilizing other people's capital. How can you break through the obstacle of the how? You need a company that is dedicated to seeing you create and build your family's generational wealth by, with, and through creative capital structure. This company should allow you to leverage their knowledge and their team. all who are licensed professionals within the industry to help you achieve your financial goals of building generational wealth, creating true passive income, all while your hard-earned investment capital is secured. Here's the first component, your time. Remember that leverage component? You need a company whose every hour, every day is committed to allowing their partner investors to pursue their own passions, their own careers, their lifelong dreams, while tirelessly creating, presenting, and partnering with you. You need a company that has years worth of knowledge and understanding to help you structure your loans in the best way possible to mitigate and shift your risk to your borrower. And then you need a company who has the needed experience in the private mortgage and deed of trust investment space to walk with you through the worst case scenarios, from bankruptcies to foreclosures to even litigation from your clients, your borrowers. And that's where the sophisticated investor comes into place. The sophisticated investor is a community focused on providing education, focused on providing community, focused on providing mentorship and networking opportunities with other private lenders. Thank you very much. This has been Edwin Epperson, Investing in Private Notes. I've actually written a very short ebook called The Deception of Passive Income. It's something that compares dividend private mortgage investing as well as real estate rental owners. So if you're interested in that, please shoot me a comment. Reach out to me. My contact information is on the screen. You can find us on Facebook and you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I hope that this has been empowering. I hope that this has sparked an idea that you too can become the bank, just like the sophisticated investors throughout the world do today. Thank you. God bless, and make it a great rest of your day.